country illegally cast a ballot, it takes the power of your vote away. Visit onlycitizens.vote to find out how you can contact your legislature and get them to pass a citizens-only voting amendment. Again, visit onlycitizens.vote and defend your right to vote.
NASCAR. Do you like a Tribe Called Quest? Well, you gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Do you like manwich and nachos? Well, then you'd love the Urban Conservative.
Do you like guns? Do you like butter? Well, you're gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Yo, what's good, son? You like pit bulls, say? You like solving Sudoku puzzles? Then you gonna love the Urban Conservative.
Hey, buddy, if your car making a sound like this, you might want to get you some power steering fluid and check out the Urban Conservative podcast.
Are you repulsed by the idea of drag queen story time at your local library, but enjoy Carol Baskin TikTok memes? Then you would enjoy the Urban Conservative. Do you want to slap your boss and then go home and make yourself some golden brown pancakes covered in butter and freshly made warm boysenberry syrup? Then you'll love the Urban Conservative.
If you're a little over Cardi B and you're repulsed by the thought of Hogmaw, check out the Urban Conservative. You ready? If you think the earth is flat and always on that weird side of YouTube, check out the Urban Conservative. They'll set you straight.
If you're in a chasing dopey and you love South Fish and Festival, check out the Urban Conservative.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you know what it is. It is a Monday night. It is time for the Urban Conservative podcast each and every Monday night, 8 p.m., right here live on YouTube, Instagram, and across the web at tuconservative.com. That is the website you need to go to support what we do, which is to share conservative values and principles and the benefits of conservative policies to urban communities across this great nation of ours. Again, tuconservative.com is the website that you can go to support what we do here. I got to give a big shout out to my twin brother, Raheem Architect Soto, the other half of the Urban Conservative. He's out on writing duties tonight. A big things are going with him in the writing situation. But we've got an interesting show for you all tonight. One thing before we go any further, before we get the show started, we want to take a moment to recognize what's happening here in North Carolina. Multiple law enforcement officers, 3 killed, 5 other officers shot and injured here in Charlotte, North Carolina. Matter of fact, only about a mile and a half away from where I live. I heard the sirens as the officers were en route. I had no idea what was going on, but come to find out, officers serving a warrant, 3 have died. Again, 5 wounded, 1 listed as in critical condition. Our hearts and prayers go out to those who serve, those of the fallen. It's just, we live at a time where more often than not, we get to find out, how dangerous, very quickly, how dangerous what law enforcement does. So that's going on. We've got protests going on at UNC Chapel Hill. There is a lot going on here in North Carolina. As you may or may not know, there is indeed a runoff happening. May 14th is the date you need to go and vote in the runoff if you're a Republican or an unaffiliated that pulled a Republican ballot in the North Carolina primary. We have 2 runoffs going, one for Lieutenant Governor and one for the state auditor's office. State Auditor Beth Wood not running for re-election. 2 Republicans in the runoff. One we have with us tonight on the Urban Conservative for the first time. Looking forward to a lively conversation. I've seen this gentleman across North Carolina staying busy, hitting district conventions everywhere he could be. Ladies and gentlemen, for the first time on the Urban Conservative, welcome Dave Boliek. How you doing, brother Dave?
Man, I am doing fantastic. I'm in the wonderful city of Charlotte also today, and my heart and prayers go out to those who lost their life serving the public in East Charlotte this afternoon. I mean, I do think that these council of state positions are important, but it makes trivial sometimes what we do in politics when you see what our first responders and law enforcement officers do on a daily basis.
Totally agreed, brother Dave. Totally agreed. So let's jump right in. For the folks that may not know who Dave Boliek is, what we try to do here is give them what they may not know. So give them a little background for the folks that may not be familiar. Where you from? How'd you grow up? All that good stuff.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm Dave Boliek, and I was born in Lincolnton, North Carolina, right down the street, down the highway from Charlotte. I've lived in North Carolina all my life, in 13 different communities across the state. I have a wonderful wife of the last 28 years. We'll be 29 on May 22nd. We have 4 children, 2 of which are grown and off our family payroll. So we're really excited about that, of course. I am an attorney by trade. I also have a master's degree in business administration, and I have owned and run several businesses and owned a couple of businesses in addition to my law firm that I operate. One, a allied health concern where my wife and I provide speech, occupational, and physical therapy to children across eastern North Carolina. It's really her labor of love, and it's her service for the community. She's a real champion for children across North Carolina. You mentioned Chapel Hill earlier, and I'd like to talk about that. Hopefully, if we've got time, about things we're trying to do to clean that mess up that's going on currently on campus in Chapel Hill. But I've spent the last several years as chair of the board there, where we've made some real strides to bring conservatism to our university system. It's gone. You and I both have talked about this. Our universities have gone way too far left. It's time to bring balance back to our universities, and I've worked really hard on that the past several years. I'm sure we'll get into that a little bit. But I'm a true North Carolinian, and I love this state. I'm running for state auditor not because I want a job, but because I want to serve the people of the state of North Carolina.
Well, thank you for that. Appreciate it. And so let me back up a little bit. Being an attorney, going to law school, was that kind of the life trajectory? Did you grow up in a conservative household? Like, what was the politics like for Dave growing up?
So, I grew up in a media family. My father was actually a television reporter who was quite conservative. In fact, Governor Martin asked him to join his staff in the 80s to come on the PR department in the 80s. So I grew up in a Christian home and have gone to church my entire life. I had what I thought was a pretty good childhood. I'm an Eagle Scout. I went to Scouts. I played sports, played basketball and football in high school, and grew up a true North Carolinian in a conservative fashion. Over the years, I said, I was born and raised a Christian, but it wasn't until really about 18 years ago that I developed a personal relationship with Christ. And that was on a retreat that I was invited to. And I met Christ face to face, so to speak, and have strived to walk in his footsteps every day since that moment.
Wow. Thanks for sharing that. And so growing up conservative, growing up North Carolina, we're gonna fast forward a little bit. This idea of running for state auditor. People talk about what the auditor's job is. Some people who are like really political know all about what the auditor does, right? And then there's the people who have no idea what the auditor does. So if you had to give it to me like I'm a fifth grader, right? What to you is the job of the state auditor? How do you explain that to somebody who may not be familiar with what the auditor does?
Yeah, well, a couple of things in there. You want to know why in the world would I want to run for state auditor? And sort of was sparked by something I did when I first got on the board at Chapel Hill. I was informed that there were 16, count them, 16, a dual 16 separate budgets running $4.4 billion a year in a spend. I mean, I thought they misspoke when they told me that, and in fact they didn't. So I set about, along with some other members of our board, and I led the charge on this, to consolidate our budget to one forward-looking budget. And in the process, we discovered a $100 million annual shortfall. And it was that success that really sparked the idea that I could run for state auditor and serve at the state level. You know, I had a judge. I was a former prosecutor, so not only have I been in private practice, but I have prosecuted as well. I've been in traffic court and I've handled murder cases. So I've got a lot of experience investigating and get to the bottom of things. But I had a judge tell me one time, just because something looks stupid doesn't mean it's not on purpose. And I believed that these 16 budgets were on purpose so that money could be shell gamed. Well, again, there's a few things, if I never do anything else in my public life, I'm proud of, and that's certainly one of them. But to your second question, which is what in the world does the state auditor do? Well, obviously the state auditor serves on some important boards like the local government council. But in the day-to-day bread and butter operation of the state auditor's office, the auditor is responsible for three types of audits. One is a financial and compliance audit. And most of your listeners, when I say that, will know pretty much what that means. And it means just what it sounds like, that you track the money, audit state agencies and folks that hold state money to make sure that the money they have is being spent in the way it was intended and is being held with the proper fiduciary capacity. And there's nothing corrupt or missing in terms of the books. However, the state auditor is really authorized by statute to accomplish two additional types of audits. And those two other audits include economy and efficiency audits. And I think we can all agree government can be more efficient. So the auditor is responsible for auditing our state agencies and folks that operate with the state, that contract with the state for economy and efficiency measures. The auditor is also tasked with taking a look at program results. And those are programs in the state government, taking a look at those programs, and really, in my estimation, asking one question, and that is, what is the return taxpayers are getting for their dollars? And if that question can't be answered in a positive manner, then I think it's incumbent upon the state auditor to take a look at those programs and make a recommendation to the governor and the legislature to defund those programs.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we're kicking it with Dave Boliek, who is running for North Carolina State Auditor. There's going to be a runoff election on May the 14th. We're going to talk some more about what's going on here in North Carolina after this very brief commercial break here on the Urban Conservative Podcast. It's a Monday night. We talking North Carolina politics. Don't go nowhere. We'll be right back. Country illegally cast a ballot. It takes the power of your vote away. Visit onlycitizens.vote to find out how you can contact your legislature and get them to pass a citizens-only voting amendment. Again, visit onlycitizens.vote and defend your right to vote.
Doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat. This year, in order to see benefits for our communities, we need to vote outside the box. Find out more by visiting us at tuconservative.com.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back live on the Urban Conservative. It's a Monday night. We're talking with Dave Boliek, who is looking after your money, wants to become your next North Carolina State Auditor. Primary runoff date, May 14th here in North Carolina. Early voting is in full effect. If you are an unaffiliated voter who pulled a Republican ballot or a Republican who voted in the primary, you need to go cast your vote for lieutenant governor and for state auditor, which are the two elections, again, that are part of the runoff. Folks, we're talking with Dave Boliek, who is one of the candidates running for North Carolina state auditor on the Republican side. We've talked a little bit about what's going on up at UNC Chapel Hill with the protest, and we talked a little bit about, finding and identifying ways to cut down on waste and fraud. One of the things in light of what's happening here in Charlotte, Dave, is in when we talk about the auditor's office having the power to audit municipal governments, when we look at places like Rocky Mount and some of the previous audits of kind of incidents where municipal officials just outright broke the law, let's call it what it is. How much more, I don't know if power is the right word, but how do we add some teeth, or do you think there's enough teeth behind what the auditor finds in relation to fraud and waste and that kind of thing?
So that's a good question. I appreciate you asking that. I do think that the auditor has enough teeth in the office to make things positively happen. I really criticize the former elected state auditor, who, by the way, was indicted. I mean, look, we got to start there in terms of moving forward in our state auditor's office. We got to bring integrity back to the office. But in looking at audits that were done at the municipal level, it's one thing to go in and do an audit and come up with the figures and the math and have a conclusion that's mathematical. I think the next step, and what is incumbent upon an effective auditor, is to come up with ironclad recommendations to both the governor, to the legislature, and in the case, for example, where you have malfeasance, where you have people outright breaking the law, particularly in the municipality setting, to go straight to the district attorney of that district and lay that audit down with a recommendation that prosecution occur. Without a strong auditor willing to go ahead and lay down their opinion that somebody needs to be prosecuted, you basically have an auditor's office that doesn't have that type of teeth. And I've been traveling the state, and I've been saying, look, I'm not intending on showing up at the state auditor's office with a Ziploc bag full of number 2 pencils and a calculator. I'm going to show up at the state auditor's office, and we're going to remake the culture of that office. We're going to plow forward. We're going to do things for the state of North Carolina and for the taxpayers that make a difference. And if that includes making a recommendation that someone who is stealing money be prosecuted, we're going to put our prosecutors, regardless of their political disposition, on the spot. And we're going to recommend that people that steal taxpayer money be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law.
Excellent. Now, one of the things, Dave, and then we have on this show, we've actually had the previous state auditor on, and we talked about, and I'm very specifically going after this situation in Rocky Mount because it was a clear-cut case where this elected official basically was doing things he shouldn't have done. The Senate stepped in and they passed the law. What if anything do you see, and maybe this is too broad of a question, I don't want to get too in the woods on this with you, but what do you see is the number one thing the state General Assembly needs to empower the auditor's office to do? Are there that level of changes you think need to be made to the auditor's office as it is now?
Well, I think there are a couple of things. One is, I do think, and this is a little bit broader, and I'll get more specific to I think what you're getting at with the municipal audits. But one is, we need an increase in technology in the state auditor's office. The technology in that office is behind where it needs to be. We absolutely need to go to the General Assembly and provide, and again, I think this is where effective leadership is really required, and that is provide the General Assembly with a specific outline of the technology needed. You don't go to the General Assembly with your hand out and just ask for money. What you need to do is go to the General Assembly with a plan, a strategic plan, and with specific asks in terms of dollars needed to effectuate the right technology. So that's number one. Number two, I think we need to go to the General Assembly and look at housing election integrity in the office of the state auditor. I think the state auditor is uniquely qualified to take a look at election integrity. There are multiple audits that need to be done. I would start with scrubbing the voter roll.
Okay.
And
wait.
wait.
Hold on, Dave. Hold on. So hold on. So put an office of election integrity under the auditor. Would that mean auditing the state board of elections?
Yes, it would. Absolutely. 100%. The state board of elections has not been audited in more than a decade. It needs to be audited. You also, and look, a lot of this stuff, I don't presuppose to know the answer to these audits. I don't think it's fair for someone running for state auditor to say, well, I think there's something wrong one way or the other.
Sure.
I simply think that first, the Board of Elections needs to be audited, not only for its financial situation, but for how they do things. And I also think there are certain audits that can protect the integrity of the elections, because if the voting public doesn't have confidence that our elections are being run fairly and above board, they tend not to vote. And I've traveled this state and I've heard election integrity as a top issue in North Carolina. I want to address it. I think housing it in the state auditor's office is the right thing to do. We can scrub the voter rolls. We can do what's called a SOC audit, which is your operations and systems audits to make sure things are run in a certain way and the processes are followed. We need to do a technology and a machine audit, and we also need a voter tabulation audit. Those are 4 standard audits that I think the state auditor's office should complete. And to your point on municipal audits, I think we're going to need the right staff and the right team to be available not only to pursue fraud and corruption, but to lend an assisting hand, particularly the smaller municipalities that may only have one clerk or a very small staff that's required by statute to audit and keep track of the finances of a municipality. I think the state auditor's office can serve not only as the office that looks at fraud and corruption, but can also be a helping hand to smaller municipalities to assist them with auditing their books to make sure they don't have a problem.
Indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, we're talking with Dave Boliek, who is running for North Carolina State Auditor. You're hanging out with us on a Monday night on the Urban Conservative Podcast. Let us know where you're watching or listening from live so you get a shout out on the podcast. All my listen back crew, make sure you get this content a share so that you can go and inform your friends before the May 14th runoff. We're going to take a real quick commercial break. We're going to talk a little bit more with Dave Boliek, running for North Carolina State Auditor. On the other side of this one, give us a like, share, follow, subscribe. We'll be right back here on the Urban Conservative Podcast. Don't go nowhere.
Doesn't mean you have to vote Democrat. This year, in order to see benefits for our communities, we need to vote outside the box. Find out more by visiting us at tuconservative.com.
Country illegally cast a ballot. It takes the power of your vote away. Visit onlycitizens.vote to find out how you can contact your legislature and get them to pass a citizens-only voting amendment. Again, visit onlycitizens.vote and defend your right to vote.
Have brought you chaos at our border, failed foreign policy, sky-high prices, and out-of-control crime. It's time for new ideas and new leadership. Vote Abdul Ali for U.S. House District 12, and let's make America better. Paid for by Ali for Congress.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, you're back. It's Monday night. We're kicking it here on the Urban Conservative Podcast. We're talking North Carolina politics tonight. Again, our heart goes out to the family and the loved ones and the departments. 3 law enforcement officers killed today, 5 more shot and injured in an operation in East Charlotte today. Again, that just devastating what's happening out there on city streets. And not to politicize this stuff, Dave, but who we vote for absolutely matters. You know, who we put into office, who we put instill our trust into with our vote to run these state level organizations and our municipalities absolutely matters. So we're on the tail end of this conversation with Dave Boliek running for state auditor. You got some love in the comments, brother Dave. Got Christina Williams out there. She said she's putting out signs out at the polls for you. We've got some Eastern Carolina, some mountains checking in. Yeah, pretty good. So, elephant in the room, pun intended, Dave. This is primary stuff.
Yeah.
The question has come up, and when we look at people like, and I'm going to use her as an example because she's in my district, Trisha Cotham, who switched from Democrat to Republican, gave Republicans the supermajority in the House. What do you say to those that might be on the Republican side about your reception in the GOP? Being a registered Democrat, like, how do you address that when that comes up?
Well, I'm not now. Obviously, I'm a registered Republican.
Right.
And a proud registered Republican. It comes up because I'm an Eastern North Carolinian. As you know, and you've heard, and you and I have talked about this offline. Conservatism is what you do, not what you say. And I have been a lifelong conservative. I've lived in Eastern North Carolina. The Democratic Party left me a long time ago. Not really decided to seek office and look, I've learned a lot. I'll tell you, I've learned about how important primary politics is. And I tell people transparently that I was a general election kind of guy. And let me tell you, these primaries are important. And I consider myself to be a smart guy, but I'm also somebody that will look myself in the mirror and say, I've learned something. And one thing I've learned over the last year is really how important primary politics are. And quite frankly, should have been involved more earlier on in Republican primary politics. But, I'm not that much different. I mean, from many leaders across our old former leaders, Senator Jesse Helms, who was a former Democrat, Senator Locke Fairclough, and our own President Donald Trump, who was a former Democrat.
For sure.
Who in my estimation, has done more to open up the Republican Party to everyday folks than anybody, certainly since Ronald Reagan. And he certainly opened up the Republican Party to me. I'll tell you, I have been welcomed with open arms in the Republican Party. And I'll give you an example of how North Carolina is changing and how conservatism and Republicans can be proud. Just last night, night before last, I was in Robeson County, which is Lumberton, North Carolina. Senator Danny Britt is a Republican senator from that county.
I know that guy, really good guy.
Great guy. He ran 76% of the voters in his district when he ran was Democrats, and he won as a Republican. Today, 47% of the folks in his district are Democrats. So he's flipped now almost 30% of the vote in Robeson County. He and Representative Jared Lowry down there have flipped that part of North Carolina. I represent, in large part, the flip, the coming home to North Carolina roots, which the Republican Party represents, and the Democratic Party just quite frankly doesn't.
Well, you can't see this, but on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm showing y'all Dave's website has a list of groups that have come out to endorse Crystal Coast Tea Party, Citizen Advocates for Accountable Government, Conservative Coalition of North Carolina, Liberty First Grassroots, New Group of Patriots, Sheriff Donnie Harrison of Wake County, Jim McIver of Bladen County, Phil Berger has come out, Danny Britt, Dave Craven, Ralph Heiss, Mike Lazara, Brad Overcash, Bill Rabin. Okay. You got Tim Moore, John Bell, Brian Biggs, the proverbial who's who list. I see Jason saying Chris Humphrey. I see Chad Brown. You even got Jim Key coming out in support of you. Now the folks at home can see
Jim
this.
Key's a great guy. You know, he and I got to be really good friends on the campaign trail. I think a lot of Jim.
Jim is a great guy, good friend of our platform here. Great dude. Clearly, you've been kind of accepted by a lot of folks across the Republican spectrum, and then maybe accepted not being the right word. Welcome should be it should be the word. But what are you looking forward to seeing? Should you get past the primary? What do you think is going to be the biggest thing? Challenge for you in the general, if there's one thing you would say this might be the area of concern. So what are you looking at for the general election should you get past the primary?
Well, one thing on a positive note is the grassroots support that we've gotten, because I really consider myself a grassroots candidate because I am out here, and you see me. I am at every GOP event that I can get to, because I want to shake hands and I want to hear directly from people, and I want people to meet me face to face and size me up and question me and really test me, because that's just the kind of guy I am. I'm a regular guy. I'm approachable. But moving forward into the fall, we got to have a junkyard dog, so to speak, in this race for state auditor, because the Cooper appointee in this race is going to be well funded. You can rest assured that the liberals and the Democratic Party do not want to give up the state auditor's office. Clad hold on that office, and the last thing they want is a guy like me to go in there and start tearing apart the mess they've made out of state executive functions, thanks to Roy Cooper and Josh Stein. So, we need a fighter, and I'm a fighter, and that's been my mantra. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to take on the Cooper appointee, and I'm going to not hold back any punches. I'm just not going to do it. If you want a guy that's going to go in there and count numbers and give you some kind of milquetoast audit, I'm not your guy. Don't vote for me. If you want a guy that's going to go out there and fight for the taxpayers of North Carolina, and is going to go out and root out corruption, root out fraud and waste, look at efficiency, and take on the big issues of North Carolina, like the DMV, making that more efficient. Can we get an amen that the DMV needs to be
I do not. That is a soapbox that you do not have the link. It is a nightmare.
It is a train wreck. And if you want milquetoast, don't vote for me. I promise you, don't vote for me, because that's not me. I'm going in there to get things done. I don't need a job. I want the job of state auditor because I want to serve the people of North Carolina, not because I want a 9-to-5 job. That's not what this campaign is about. This campaign is about making things happen on behalf of the taxpayers of North Carolina and standing up for what's right. I believe North Carolina is a red state. I'm a conservative, and I'm going to push a conservative agenda. We'll do the right thing and be fair. And we're going to look at it across party lines. If people in the Republican Party are not taking care of taxpayer money, we're going to call them out. But if people in the Democratic Party aren't doing it, we're going to call them out too. But we've got to have people of action in these council state positions. And I promise you, I'm a man of action.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight. We got Dave Boliek, ladies and gentlemen. Before you go, Dave, don't go anywhere. You can't hear it, but on your screen, ladies and gentlemen, you see Dave's commercial. I had to play this, so stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We're gonna play Dave's commercial real quick.
48, 49, 7, 8, 9, 55, 56.
Dave runs a tight ship.
7, 8, 9. Honey?
I made breakfast.
55, 56, $57.44.
Dad makes us keep track of every penny.
We've talked about wasteful spending.
Nothing gets by Dave. Nothing.
48, 48, 49, 50. Honey,
You need Dave and Raleigh auditing state spending.
boys,
But we really need Dave and Raleigh auditing state spending.
boys.
Conservative, Republican, Dave Boliek for State Auditor.
I don't know, Dave. You're in the top. That's a top 10, top 5 political ad of the year so far. That's a good one. Nothing gets.
Man, I appreciate
That's
it.
a really good ad, man.
Well, listen, hey, I'm glad to be here, and I'm honored to be here with the most qualified candidate for the 12th district congressional seat.
Oh,
And that
well.
would be you.
Well, I appreciate that, brother. I appreciate that.
We need you to pull the upset and send the hat lady home.
Amen to that. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, we're talking with Dave Boliek, running for North Carolina State Auditor. The website, as you can see on your screen, is auditordave.com. Find out more. May 14th is the election. You need to go to your county board of elections website to find out where your early voting locations are. Get your vote in early unless you're going to do it on May 14th, but you do have the opportunity to get your vote in early. Again, it's auditordave.com. Thank you for joining us here on the Urban Conservative. Auditor Dave, appreciate you. We'll definitely have you back in as the race progresses.
Yes, sir. I am honored always to be in your presence.
Well, thank you, brother. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Make sure you're with us tomorrow morning, bright and early, 9 a.m. for top of the morning here on the Urban Conservative. Give us a like, share, follow, subscribe. Once again, tuconservative.com is the website. Our hearts, our prayers go out to the fallen officers' families, their units, those that are injured. We pray for a speedy recovery for you all. Please keep your first responders, whichever side of the aisle you're on, keep these first responders in your prayers. They have very dangerous jobs. And like Dave said, it's what we do in politics is nothing compared to these folks putting their lives on the line. So peace and love, y'all. Be safe out there. We'll catch y'all on the next podcast. Peace.